2 fans, 1 hot room. A $25 box fan blasting 400 cubic feet per minute of raw air. A $400 bladeless tower spinning a quiet Coanda trick. Brute force versus a clever whisper, and only one actually keeps you cool. People pay 10 to 15 times more for the bladeless tower, expecting it to cool better. Not just look sleek on a shelf. That's the trap. The extra money buys form and quiet, but does it buy a stronger breeze? This video settles 2 fights at once. Which one actually moves more air to your skin? And why on earth is the pricey one so much quieter? The answer to both hides in one number almost nobody checks. Start with the only number that matters for cooling. Airflow is measured in cubic feet per minute. That's the volume of air a fan actually shoves past itself every minute. More cubic feet per minute means more air landing on you, means faster cooling. It's that direct. So let's put real digits on the fight. A 20-inch box fan has a big spinning disc of blades, roughly 1.5 feet across. On its highest setting, that large blade area pushes around 400 cubic feet per minute. 400 cubic feet of air every single minute aimed straight at the couch. Now the bladeless tower. Here's the first tell. Manufacturers rarely print a raw cubic feet per minute number on the box at all. When independent testers actually measure the air coming out, the tower typically lands somewhere between 120 and 180 cubic feet per minute. Read that again. The $400 machine moves well under half the air of the $25 one, often closer to a third. So if the tower is pushing so much less air, why does standing in front of it still feel like a real breeze? Because the tower isn't only pushing the air its little motor makes. It's pulling extra room air along for the ride. And that borrowed air is the whole magic trick the marketing is built on. That's the Coanda effect, and it's clever than it sounds. But cleverness isn't the same as raw volume, and that gap between 400 and 150 doesn't just vanish because the airflow is smoother. So how does a hidden motor, the size of a soda, can pretend to move the air of a 2-foot blade? Here's the trick layer by layer. Down in the base of the tower sits a small impeller. It's a compact spinning wheel that grabs air and forces it upward. That's the only air the motor actually makes, and it isn't much. This thin stream gets pushed up into the hollow loop at the top, and squeezed out through a narrow slot that runs all the way around the ring's inner edge. Now the physics. The inner face of that ring isn't flat. It's curved like an airplane wing, an airfoil. When the fast, thin jet shoots along that curved surface, it clings to it instead of flying straight off. Moving air likes to hug a curved surface it's already touching. That hugging is the Coanda effect, named for the engineer who spotted it. And here's why it matters for your breeze. As that jet races around and off the ring's lip, it's dragging the still room air sitting right beside it, pulling that calm air into the moving stream. Engineers call it entrainment. The little jet from the motor might be modest, but by the time it leaves the ring, it has swept a much larger slug of room air along with it. That's the air multiplier claim, and it's genuinely real. The output feels bigger than the impeller alone could ever manage, sometimes 15 times the motor's own flow. But real doesn't mean unlimited. Multiplying a small flow gives you a bigger small flow. It borrows room air, it does not conjure raw push out of nowhere. The ring can amplify 150 cubic feet per minute into a wider, gentler wash of air. It cannot amplify it into the 400 cubic feet per minute wall a big blade throws. So the tower loses on volume. But it wins on something the box fan can't touch. Quiet. Now the question everyone actually opened this video for. Why does the expensive one whisper? It comes down to 3 things, and none of them are magic. First and biggest, there's no giant blade slicing the air right next to your ears. A box fan's 1.5 foot blades spin fast and chop the air into pressure pulses. Thousands of tiny slaps a second. That chopping is most of the roar you hear. The tower has no exposed blade at all. Its only spinning part is that small impeller, buried deep in the base, far from your head and wrapped in housing that muffles it. Second, the airfoil ring cleans up the flow. A box fan throws out turbulent, choppy air. Swirls crashing into swirls, and turbulence is just noise you can feel. The ring smooths that jet into a steady, even sheet, so there's far less of that broadband hiss and blade pass whoosh. Third, it's simply moving less air. Less air in motion is less air to make noise. And that's the honest part the ads skip. The quiet isn't a free lunch. It isn't that the Coanda trick beats a blade at cooling and happens to be silent too. The tower is quiet largely because it moves less air, and it moves that smaller amount more smoothly. Trade the raw 400 cubic feet per minute gale for a soft 150, hide the motor, straighten the flow, and you get a machine you can sleep beside. You paid for silence. Physics made you pay for it in airflow. So on a hot, sticky night, which trade actually wins at the thing you bought a fan to do? Time to put it on the shopper's table. 4 things you actually care about: cooling reach, noise, cost, and safety. Cooling reach, the box fan wins, and it isn't close. 400 cubic feet per minute versus roughly 150 means the box fan pushes air clear across a room, while the tower gently wafts the space right in front of it. Noise, the tower wins cleanly. Smooth, low, sleep-friendly against the box fan's steady roar. Now cost, and here's where it gets brutal. $25 for about 400 cubic feet per minute. $400 for maybe 150. Do the division. The box fan gives you something like 10 cents per cubic foot per minute. The tower asks nearly $3 for that same unit of airflow. As a pure air-moving machine, the box fan is roughly 30 times more air for your money. 30 times. Safety and upkeep is where the tower earns its keep. No exposed blades means no chopped fingers. Real peace of mind with a toddler or a cat batting at it. And with no blade cage to unscrew, cleaning is a quick wipe instead of a greasy disassembly. So the verdict on value isn't a tie. If you're buying air, the box fan is dramatically more cooling per dollar. It isn't even a contest. The Bladeless Tower isn't overpriced air. It's a different product. You're paying that premium for quiet, for a safe, smooth shape with no spinning blade, and for a tidy look that disappears into a room. Not for more coolings. Never for more coolings. Which means the title's fight was rigged from the start, and now we can call the winner. So here's the whole machine clicked together. The box fan moves more air. Full stop. Around 400 cubic feet per minute against the tower's 120 to 180 means that for raw cooling, the cheap fan wins, and it wins by a mile. Brute force beat the clever trick at the one job you bought the fan for. And the quiets. Now you know it was never Coanda out-muscling a blade. The tower is quieter for a plain reason. It moves less air, and it pushes that smaller amount through a smooth airfoil ring instead of chopping it with a fast blade by your ear. Less air, gentler path, softer sound. The whisper was the airflow you gave up, wearing a nicer shape. So buy on purpose. Want the most cooling for the least money, and you don't mind a roar. The $25 box fan every time. Nothing touches its air per dollar. Want a quiet, blade-free, easy-to-clean breeze that looks good in a bedroom, and you'll pay for it. The Bladeless Tower is a fine machine. As long as you know you're buying silence and safety, not a bigger wind. One line to carry out the door. For cooling, airflow beats the trick. The box fan moves the air. The Coanda trick doesn't buy you more wind, it buys you quiet. So which did you pick, the cheap gale or the pricey whisper? Tell me in the comments, and I'll settle the next appliance you've been arguing about.